All right. So thank you for your patience. Everyone is on their go formative. Let me know it's 5 thumbs up. I'm gonna come to you, help you out. So. You there, Makai? Lucy, you getting there? Are you there already? All right, so track me in the front. Thank you for the urgency. All right, so far we've talked about ecosystems and abiotic and biotic factors. We did predator-prey interactions with the food web. We talked about symbiotic relationships that exist between different organisms as well as competition that exists between organisms last week. And today we're going to talk about invasive species. Has anyone in here, by show of hands, solid hand, anyone in here heard the term before, invasive species? So we got 1, 2, 3 people. Also, Ms. Wilson taught you about it. I was paying attention. Okay, that's all right. So that's fine. Today we're going to talk more about it again today. So if you don't remember, if you don't know, that's fine as well. We're going to explore it today. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play a video for you guys. Once I play the video, I'm going to ask Makai to get the lights for me. All right. So once I play the video, what I want you guys to do is track the front with your Chromebooks 45. You may take notes on the handout I gave to you. All right. So give me a second here. Okay, Makai, get the lights on me, please.
Introduced intentionally. The zebra mussel, one of the most notorious invasive species in the United States. These rapidly reproducing mussels clog pipes and overtake beaches into Great Lakes. Some invasive species, however, are introduced intentionally. In the early 20th century, cane toads were brought to Australia as a form of pest control. Today, these poisonous amphibians number in the millions and have caused a decline in native predators on the island. It's not just animals. Bacteria, fungi, and plants can also become invasive. Brought to South Africa in the 19th century, the black wattle is an invasive tree often used for timber and firewood. This beautiful tree and other thirsty invasives are depleting the country's already record-low water supply. Because of their impact on human health, ecosystems, and infrastructure, invasive species cost the global economy over $1 trillion each year.
All right, I'm going to pause right here for you guys if you want to take down any notes or any facts you want to write down to keep in mind for you when we start doing the do now on invasive species. How it might impact people, the economy, the environment. What have you seen so far? Let's give a couple of seconds to do that before I switch to the video. All right, moving on in 10 seconds. All right, switching video 3, 2, and All right, so with this video, for some reason, whenever I project it, sound never comes out. I don't know why. I'm going to narrate this video. So basically, this is the Burmese python found in the Everglades, Shalahan. If anyone knows where the Everglades are, where they're located, Everglades. Anyone knows where they're located? Anybody? So the Everglades are in Florida, right? Which is in America, United States. So the Burmese python came from originally southeast Indonesia, so between Asia and India. So that's where they really look. That's where they're from originally. But through people bringing them from Indonesia all the way over to America, and then recently to the Everglades, they were able to survive and reproduce. Now they're living there for more than decades now, right? So these are the snakes that they have captured. They're not on the table, right? That they obviously they put down. They're not alive anymore, right? So just to show you how long these snakes can be, I'm gonna speed it up a little bit. All right. So this is the size of one of these snakes on the table, right? If you look at the sheer size of the snake, that's like from here over to the recycle bin over here. That's the size of the snake. That's how big they are. That's how long they are, right? Now, when they kill these snakes, they also open them up to count how much possible offspring the snake could have had in the environment, right? So I'll speed that up again. Okay. So each one of these sacs that they're taking out would have been a potentially individual egg that would become an offspring, right? Now, one snake or one python can potentially have anywhere between 50 to over 90 eggs for one snake, right? And these snakes are invasive species that are in the Everglades of Florida, right? They have no natural predator. All they're doing is eating, and reproducing, right? So it gets to the point where if you see one of these pythons and you have a hunting license, you're able to just kill them on sight because they want to get rid of the pythons as much as possible. As you can see, how big this one snake is and how much offspring it can have in its lifetime. And not only can they have one offspring, but they can reproduce multiple times within a year. So it could be 90 babies now, and then 3 months later, another set of 90, right? So they reproduce very quickly, and they get to be very large size because they have ample amount of food supply, right? Can I get the lights for me, please?
No, the volume's on good.
Yep.
No, the
No,
volume.
it's not going to play anyway. It's fine. All right, so these are just a few examples of an invasive species, right? Just a few. There are many more examples you can find around the world. Like one example that we don't even pay attention to. Pigs aren't native to America. Pigs were brought to America. But we eat ham every day, or some people, I don't know, some people do, right? Horses weren't native to America, but they're brought to America. So humans are impacting the environment by bringing species from different locations to different locations. And sometimes they don't even know they're bringing it, because mice go everywhere humans go, right? So something to keep in mind, what we're gonna do right now is I'm gonna give you guys 2 minutes to answer questions in the do now. All right, so 2 minutes on the clock. Based on what you saw in the video, answer questions 1 to 3. Solid, independent. Begin. 5 is already done. Merit for urgency. I'm going to get number 2. Also already on number 3, merit for urgency as well. Appreciate the hard work, everyone in the back. Last minute remaining. Should be at least ending question 2 on question number 3 at this point. And final seconds. All right, tracking me in the front. I have all eyes. All right, good, 100%. So, question number 1. In your own words, what are invasive species? In your own words, what do you think invasive species are? Deshaun.
Invasive species is a certain type of species that comes from a different area to like another area that's not.
All right, excellent. Excellent. They might take academic risk, but that's correct. They're invasive. Invasive is opposite of native, right? So they're coming from an area where they don't originate from, and they're brought to or enter an area where they're not native to. All right. So number 2, what impact or impacts can invasive species have on the environment? What impacts can they have on the environment? Kenyon. That's excellent. So they have no predators. If they have no predators in that environment, all they're going to do is eat and reproduce and spread. All right? Good. Last question. Should we care about invasive species? Should we care about invasive species? Mariamo, should we care about invasive species? Why do you say yes? Right, so they're even impacting resources that even we may need. So they're eating the animals that humans may eat, right? Or, as the video said, they're costing globally over trillions of dollars a year. That includes damaging to infrastructure or diseases, right? So keep that in mind. Okay, so today we're going to try to solve the mystery of, let me unfreeze this. We're going to try to solve the mystery of the brown tree snake in Guam. All right? So you should be on page number 2. We're doing the brown tree snake in Guam. All right? So for question 4 and 5, without any information, for question 4 and 5, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to talk to your shoulder partner of why do you think the term invasive species is used for this species, the brown tree snake. And for number 5, how might this snake species have arrived on the island? How do you think they might have got there, right? So just to take an inference, meaning that it isn't around the right answer, you're just trying to, brainstorm Why is it invasive? How do you think it got there? So 2 minutes on the clock. Reach out to a shoulder partner. Begin. There are no wrong or right answers for this. We just kind of take a guess based on what you got. One minute on the clock. Remember, this is an island, so how do things usually get to islands? All right, Makai, for question 4. Why do you think the term invasive is used for these species? What do you think? Why do you think that is?
I think the term invasive is used for this species because they're like kind of like a third party species inside of an environment because humans bring them over to places that they aren't supposed to be in. So like say like you bring like a snake that eats like mice, like a certain type of mouse, like what they call like deer mice, I think. Well, they eat the specific mice in the area, but there's also like a bunch of other animals. Next thing you know, there's going to be a food shortage. There's going to be competition. There's going to be food shortage because they're trying to live in a place where things are already balanced out.
Okay, thank you. All right, number 2. How do you think these snakes got to this island? How do you think they got there? Timmy, I'll try to continue on the back.
I said that somehow compared to like some kind of carrots or snakes and ends up living like somewhere random and snake probably get used to.
So you said somebody carried them from vacation, you said?
Somebody came to carry them to this island.
Okay, so somebody dumped on the island, but what? How else would they have gotten there then? Carlos, Captain Carlos? Okay, so it has to be a combination, right? So a boat, but as Tinian said, someone has to bring them on the boat, right? Because it's an island, right? So snakes will usually go on boats unless someone puts them on the boat, or they get by accident, right? All right, so keep those in mind, right? We're gonna find out how they got there once we go through the investigation. But as Makai said, they're not native to the island, right? There may be a few natural predators there for them, right? So we don't know yet. Let's find out. Go to the next page. We're looking at clue card number 1 on the next page. All right. So clue card number 1, I'm going to start reading, and I'm going to call on someone to interject. So we're all looking at clue card number 1. Find where it says they floated down. Tracking along, follow along. All right, they floated down from the sky. Sunday, 2,000 mice wafting on tiny cardboard parachutes over the Anderson Air Force Base in U.S. territory of Guam. But the rodent commandos don't know that they were on a mission to help eradicate brown tree snakes, an invasive species that has caused millions of dollars in wildlife and commercial losses since it arrived a few decades ago. That's because they were dead and pumped full of painkillers. Take it over, Deshaun.
The U.S. has tried lots of ways to eliminate snakes, but this is likely arise
Inadequately.
inadequately and effective partnership with sometime in the 1950s. Snake traps, snake sitting dogs, and snake hunting inspectors have all helped control the population, but snakes are especially hardy and now infest the entire island.
All right. Last paragraph. Take it over for me, Makai.
The brown tree snakes have actually Tylenol. For some reason, the snakes are almost uniquely sensitive to
Acetaminophen.
Huh?
Acetaminophen.
Acetaminophen. The active ingredient in
Ubiquitous.
over-the-counter painkiller. If you can get a tree snake to eat just 80 milligrams, you can kill it. It's only about 1/6 of a standard pill. Pigs, dogs, and other similarly sized animals will have to eat about 500 of the baited mice to get a lethal dose.
All right, excellent. So based on the information read in clue card number 1, questions 6, 7, and 8. So we're going to split that up. So we're going to have Makai and Mariama do question number 1 together. You may talk across. Carlos, Deshaun, and Ilian do question 2. Tinyan, Musa, and Elizabeth can focus on question 3. I'm going to give you guys 2 minutes on those questions. You may speak at a restaurant level and begin. Oh, yeah. With the shine, you gotta communicate through your system. So you can speak, you don't have to move. All right, we got 30 seconds left, so you should be finalizing your answers. Also decide who will be sharing the answer for your group. So who's gonna be the speaker? Make sure you guys know that, so we come back together. Ten seconds. All right, voices are up. tracking the speaker, we're starting with question number 6. So for question number 6 between Mariama and Makai, who will be speaking.
So I said that adding a new species could affect the food web because it will basically allow the prey/predator system to be tampered with or ruined. Because if you add a new prey to a species or to a food web, then there's going to be more predators because there's more food to go around. So that will make the prey decrease. And if you add a new predator, there will be less prey to go around because there's always going to be competition for them.
All right, so excellent. So you have like the imbalance of predator and prey, right? In the food web. Excellent answer. Shane Makai and Mariama, merit to both of you guys. All right, question 7. Who will be speaking for question 7? All right, go ahead, Carlos. Taking Carlos in the middle. All across, a little bit too fast. Slow it down and be loud.
I said a fast reproducing organism would cause more destruction because there would be more of the organism to go on to what they said first, to disrupt the predator-prey system in the ecosystem.
All right, so you said fast producing, fast reproduction, or fast, right? Because you have more to spread and cause more disruption. All right? All right, finally, question number 8. Who will be speaking for question number 8? All right, so Trek and Musa in the back.
I said they were bored because they were
Real loud, Musa.
I said they were bored because they were
All right, so since you don't have a native predator, they will continue to flourish. So you said no native predator equals more flourishing. All right, but let's flip it around. How might species flourish if you introduce invasive species? What do you think? Offhand. Yes, Carlos. Excellent. So let's say they bring in a predator that eats dragonflies, right? So all the dragonfly population would decrease. But then, because dragonflies eat mosquitoes, the mosquito population will increase, right? So if you decrease a predator that's eating something in the food web, you can increase the prey that predator used to eat, right? So you could, as Makai said, you create that imbalance of predator and prey. Just want you had your hand up? Okay. So those were the answers for questions 6, 7, and 8. We're now going to move on to clue card number 2. We're looking at clue card number 2. All right. Before we can use data from any graph, we must understand what we are seeing on the graph, right? How do you know what you're seeing on the graph? Like, what gives you the information you need? Where can you find information that tells you what's happening in the graphs? Anybody? Nobody. I see one hand. No one knows. All right. Track the front then. All odds. All odds. Make 1%. Look. First, the title tells you. It's the data on bird population of Guam from 1976 to 2000. So that right there, the date, the graph, the title, will give you information on what it's going to be about, right? Lastly, at the bottom of the graph, we have some small words that may seem insignificant, but gives you information that is important. It says, these are the authors right here. It says impacts of the brown tree snake, right? Patterns of decline and species persistence in Guam's, I don't know, that word is too small, in conversation about probably a company, right? But this first line right here is where it says impacts of the brown tree snakes, patterns of decline and species persistence in Guam is more than enough to give you what each of these individual graphs are showing you, right? So each of these names are names of birds, so you guys know. And then what you're seeing is populations for each dot is a population count. Okay? So what I want you guys to do is, I'm gonna give you guys 4 minutes. In 4 minutes, you're going to use the data on the graphs to answer questions 9 through question 12. You're doing that silently, independently. And so, also have 2 minutes, 50 seconds. Even more. At this point, you should be on question 10 at least. Or finishing question 10. All right, 30 seconds. Bring it back together. All right. We're looking at question number 9. Question number 9. Do all bird species seem equally at risk for decline? Do all bird species seem equally at risk for decline? Mariamo. Right, so at some point, the answer is yes, because if you look at the graphs, there is no bird species that's unaffected. So at some point, the populations do decline. So no bird species is unaffected. All right, question number 10. What characteristics might the bird have to help them protect or place them at more at risk? Musa. Okay, just so to clarify, it's saying what things might the bird do to protect themselves, or what things the birds do that they already make them be at risk? Carlos.
The snakes live in the trees, right? Where they mostly in the trees.
It's called the brown tree snake.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the birds they usually nest in trees to make them eat.
Right. So, not a good combination. The snakes, as Carlos said, brown tree snakes live in trees. Right? Birds nest in trees. So the birds have a new neighbor, and your neighbor is Mr. Snake. So when your food is right next to you, that's not a good combination, right, for the birds. What are some things birds can do to protect themselves, though? What are some things birds can do to protect themselves? What can birds do in general when they're afraid or frightened? Mariama. They can fly away, you said?
Yeah.
Right, so if birds can fly away, they can fly away for protection. But as Carlos said, end of the day, where do birds live, Elizabeth? In trees. So they can fly away, but eventually they're gonna land in a tree somewhere. So they come right back to the same problem. All right? Question 11. Question 11. Question 11. During what years do you see most species start to decline? What year are most species declining, Elizabeth? 80 through 90. Do we have any other, when they start declining, not when they're the most declining? What year did they start declining? Carlos?
Like 80,
80, 84. Anybody else? So 80, 84. That's not a bad guess. But for me, for all the birds, when they all start declining, because like the Guam rail was at 0 by 80 something. But for me, I would say between the years of 76 and 80 is when they all started to decline, like the first decrease in the population. For me, what I saw was between 76 and 80 for all the birds. Some birds didn't make it to 80. If you look at the graph, they already extinct by then. All right. All right, lastly, number 12. The overall trend statement could you make about the impact of brown tree snakes on the bird population of Guam? So what's the overall trend? What's the overall pattern that the snakes had on the birds on the island? What's the overall impact? Yes, Mariama. Excellent, right? So as the snake population increased, there was a decrease in bird population. Right? We call this a direct relationship, right? So as this goes up, or inverse relationship, call it that. As this goes up, as the population of states goes up, the population of birds are going down. It's an inverse relationship. As you increase the snake population, there's a decrease in the bird population. All right? Okay. So, can someone, because we are out of time today, and that's fine. The most important thing is to understand what the overall theme is. Can someone, in a broad, in a general term, what are some characteristics that invasive species have that negatively impact the environment? Give me 3. What are some overall general characteristics that invasive species have that can impact the environment? Mariama, give me 1. Right? You said they're competitive. Let me take this off. What do you mean by competitive?
So they compete with other animals and native which can make those other organisms.
All right, so I'm gonna say what you said in different words. So they outcompete native organisms. All right, number 1. What else can they do? What else do native species do to negatively impact the environment? In general, based upon what we saw today. All right, Mariama again. All right. So they feed off okay, so they feed off native species, right? Causing what to happen? What did we talk about for question number 3, Kenyan? Right, that can happen, but also in a bigger sense, what happens to the food web? Right, so they disrupt the food web. They cause an imbalance. Okay? All right? And lastly, what's the last characteristic you could find in all invasive species? Excellent, Musa. No native predators. All right. Whenever you can find these three things, these three characteristics in the species and the environment, you know for a fact that they're going to be invasive species. All right? All right, so that is it for today. You can submit those answers to me on Low Formative. That's going to be a class grade for the day. Any questions about that? All right, excellent. Thank you. For 5 points, I'll give you guys 5. You struggled a little bit with engagement today, but you know, you got through it. All right, thank you.